Good morning, everyone. My name is Father Carl Chudy from Our Lady of Fatima Shrine, together with our ecumenical colleagues here in Holliston, as we share together in all of our communities our hopes during this marvelous Easter season, even though it's certainly one of the most unique we've probably ever lived in our lives. I wanted to share a little bit with you about prayer. A lot of people have been asking me, and I have been asking others, to pray during this time, to pray for our frontline workers, to pray for our families and friends, to pray for those who are suffering from COVID-19. We pray for those who have died from this horrible pandemic. We pray for the paralysis that many of us often feel, particularly our governments. We pray also for many other things. And as a Christian, I don't know about you, but it's kind of a knee-jerk reaction. And the question I've been thinking about lately is, what exactly are we asking God to be and to do in all this? I want to share with you a passage from one of my favorite theologians, St. Paul, in his letter to the Romans, chapter 8, starting at verse 22. We know that the whole creation has been groaning as in the pains of childbirth, right up to the present time. Not only so, but we ourselves, who have the first fruits of the Spirit, groan inwardly as we wait eagerly for our adoption to sonship and daughtership, the redemption of our bodies. For in this hope we were saved. But hope that is seen is no hope at all. Who hopes for what they already have? But if we hope for what we do not yet have, we wait patiently. In this way, the Spirit helps us in our weakness. We do not know what we ought to pray. But the Spirit himself intercedes for us through wordless groans. And he who searches our hearts knows the mind of the Spirit, because the Spirit intercedes for God's people in accordance with the will of God. If anything, that tells me that prayer does not belong to me. It's not something that I own, or something that I have the skill to turn on and to turn off, like a light switch. The prayer, according to Paul here, in a very powerful way, is really the prayer of the Spirit that runs through our veins and our hearts, through everything we are. Our desire to pray, our desire to connect with our friends, our desire to connect with the suffering in the world around us is really the desire of God. The desire of the Spirit. We do not know what we ought to pray for, he says, but the Spirit intercedes for us in words that we do not recognize, or expressions. And he who searches our hearts knows the mind of the Spirit. As I say this, in what the struggle is for me in a lot of ways is prayer itself, and the struggle of prayer, and what it means, and what I expect God to do. Do I expect God to save those who I pray for? And what about those who die from COVID? Are they outside the mercy of God? What are we asking God to do? What are we asking ourselves and reminding ourselves what we must do? I don't know about you, but the older I get, the more I wrestle with prayer. And I have been drawn, especially in the last years, to wordlessness. Prayers with words have been getting more and more in the way with me. And that has to do with a lot of other interesting things going on in my life, particularly in my work in interfaith dialogue, and my exposure to other spiritualities besides Christianity that I've been equally inspired with. As I say this, in the end, Is prayer just about patiently waiting for God who intercedes, who works his way through so many lives in so many different ways, and to connect ourselves with that large cosmic reality that we're all a part of? Wrestling with God is really about what prayer is too, I think. And there's a very special story or parable by Nico Kazantzakis. And he writes about this old Syrian monk called Father Makarios. And Nico goes up to him and says, Father Makarios, you have been a monk for many, many years, and yet you wrestle with the devil. How is that going? Father Makarios says to him, I no longer wrestle with the devil. We have fought long and hard together, he said, and he has lost his strength and I have lost mine. Father Makarios says, I wrestle with God. Or is it my ideas about God? Whatever they are, they're certainly nothing in comparison to the reality of the omnipotence of God all around us. I invite us to consider also our prayers and what we're praying for, to think more deeply about what kind of actions it may spur me to because of that. I pray for all of you because this is God's desire. I embrace you with my prayer because God embraces you with the prayer that streams through my life. Let's bless each other with our prayer in these uncertain times.